Good morning. So obviously, as I went to log in this morning, I realized that aside from being set up, I forgot to set up the live. So I will give you guys a second if you want to join in. If not, this is always accessible in our Facebook group and on YouTube by the Friday that it airs. Sorry, total oversight. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. If not, let's get going, shall we? All right, so what we need today, we need a chair, kitchen chair. You need a towel or a kid's ball or, yeah, one of those will work. And then a stick. I have a kid's mop, because that's who I am. Aside from that, you need the floor and the wall. All right? I think that's all we need. Today, we're going to talk about getting the space between our shoulder blades, that part of your spine, that upper back, not your cervical spine, not your neck, but your upper back. We're going to get it opened up. We're going to get those muscles a little more awake, a little more activated, because we tend to be in this forward flex posture, and so we tend to stretch those out a little bit, and they get locked up and really, really tight. And so we want them to hold our spine in place. We want them to work for us. Really quickly, before we start, I want to talk about the pelvic floor just for 2 seconds. I realize that when we're doing all of this work, we're engaging our core muscles, and I'm saying, like, tighten your abdominals, lift your pelvic floor. If you don't know what that feels like, what I want you to do is just one time, when you're urinating, when you're peeing, I want you to stop the stream. All right? Just so you can feel what those pelvic floor muscles feel like. Do not do it more than once, because what happens if you're constantly starting and stopping your stream is you're inviting bacteria up into your ureter, up into your kidneys. Nobody needs a kidney infection. Nobody needs a bladder infection. Nobody needs an infection from trying to get their pelvic floor muscles to work. Another way that you can check those muscles to see if they're working, if you have to toot, practice holding your toot in just for a second. Nobody needs to hold toots in for very long. Tooting is a very natural part of how we move. But the same muscles activate if we're trying to hold a toot in, if we're trying to hold urine in, if we're trying to hold a bowel movement in. And so you can practice holding a toot in for a second, and then walk away and let it do what it needs to do. It's healthy. But if you want to really get those sort of that front part of your pelvic floor, if you really want to feel what it feels like when you tighten it, stop your urine stream for just count of 2. 1, 2. Let it go. And then you can remind your brain that's what it feels like when you're stopping your pelvic, when you're contracting your pelvic floor. And so when I say things like abdominals tight, glutes tight, lift your pelvic floor, those are the muscles I'm talking about. And I say lift because that's a really good way to think of it. If you think of a relaxed pelvic floor like an elevator on the first floor, you can practice. Take your elevator up to I guess it starts on the first floor. Take your elevator up to the second floor. Take your elevator up to the third floor. Look at my eyebrows went with the pelvic floor in that one. And so you can practice anywhere, anytime, because when your pelvic floor contracts, your glutes should not be like tightening up. You shouldn't be doing a glute set when you contract your pelvic floor. That's a very internal set of muscles that you can contract without anybody seeing. So you can practice them in lying down is a really good place to start, because it takes gravity out of the situation. So you're not pulling up against gravity. In laying down, you're just lifting sideways. You're just sliding them sideways. So you're lifting them up into your abdominal cavity. You're relaxing them down. Do it on an empty bladder, because if you're trying to relax, what happens sometimes when you contract that pelvic floor, it gets a little bit too tight. And then it has trouble relaxing. So you'll find that you can do like 1 or 2 Kegels or 1 or 2 quick flicks, and then it sort of gets stuck at the top. Walk away. Your body will relax. The more that you do them, the more that your body will get used to contracting those muscles and doing that work. But your body sort of like stops itself in that contraction because it doesn't quite know how to relax yet. And so you may have to just get up and walk away. But when we talk about like that progression on how to get more control with the pelvic floor, so that when you're doing your exercises, you can scoop your abdominals, pull your belly button in to your spine, tighten your glutes a little bit, drop your shoulders back, and lift your pelvic floor and get that good core support that you need. If you practice in the progression, you start lying down, and then you can do them leaning over your bed on your forearms, so you can come at that like sort of forward flex angle and add gravity a little bit. And then you can come up into sitting, and you can practice doing those pelvic floor lifts in sitting. And then you can practice them in standing. All of these are stationary moves, right? And so we're just getting the muscles to sort of learn how to activate in different stationary positions. And then you can practice doing those pelvic floor muscles while you're walking, or while you're standing on one leg, or while you're standing on one leg on a pillow. So a little more dynamic balance practice, or while you're jumping, which I know a lot of my moms out there are like, Dara, my pelvic floor is not going to hold me while I'm jumping. But we're working on hip strength, we're working on total core strength, we're working on all these things. And if you take that progression, if you get those muscles firing, and you seem to still be having a problem, shoot me a message. We'll tweak it out, we'll work it out. But I think that it's really important and valuable to know, start lying down, contracting, relaxing those muscles. So we're looking for 2-second hold and relax, and then we're looking for a quick flick. And that quick flick can be a lifesaver. If you can master 5-6 quick flicks, that can override your autonomic nervous system and get you the 5-10 minutes you need to get to the bathroom. So if you're like driving somewhere and you get that crazy urge to go to the bathroom, 5 or 6 quick flicks can actually buy you the time you need so that you don't overflow. And you know, if you're out doing something and you're like, we're not going to be able to get home and there is no bathroom here and I do not feel like peeing on the side of the road, quick flicks can be your best friend. So start lying down, learn how to contract, relax slow, contract, relax quick. And again, those quick ones, that the way that those muscles work, it takes a minute to master. It takes a minute to grasp how they feel when they're doing the right thing. And if you don't feel like you get it at first, then keep trying. Okay? So when I say abdominals tight, glutes tight, lift your pelvic floor, shoulders back and down, you will eventually be able to get there. These are just like any other muscles, so you have to practice their use. You have to practice exercising these muscles. In women who have had that big pelvic stretch, whether it was pregnancy, and you had a C-section, or pregnancy and you had a delivery, or pregnancy in general, and you've had that pelvic floor stretch out, or honestly a hip injury where you've like limped for a while and you have that strange stretch on your pelvic floor because your hips are off, or your knees are off, or your ankles are off. It can apply to men, it can apply to women, it can apply to parents, it can apply to non-parents. There can be something that throws your pelvis off. And think about, if your pelvis is here, this is sort of where our pelvic cup sits, and then you get a weird sort of repetitive motion where your leg is not hitting right because of a toe injury or a hip injury or a knee injury, any of those things. Your pelvic floor is taut in here. It's doing its job. It's holding, oh my gosh, what is happening to my hands? It's doing its job to hold you together. And then if you get a repetitive torsion, those muscles can end up getting just stretched in a really sort of interesting position that doesn't necessarily hold everything in as well as it should. And so getting things lined up, doing all the hip exercises that we did a few weeks ago, and those core exercises are a really good way to make sure things are lined up. But if you're still having trouble with it, send me a message. We can tweak it out. We can have a chat. We can figure out what's not lined up right so that you're not having these other problems. But also, you know, get you better control of your pelvic floor. Hooray. Nobody's going to be like sadder that they have worse control of the pelvic floor. Nobody's going to be upset that they can hold their bodily fluids in for just a little bit longer. don't hold poop in. I mean, don't poop your pants, but don't, you can, like, it's okay to hold urine, but like, if you have to poop, that's just go poop. Again, not in the woods, not on the side of the road, but like, make that your next priority. Because that's not, you don't need that. You don't need that in your life. Okay, so I realize that today is upper back mobility, but I think I'm going to go ahead and change that to just a pelvic floor overview because it's 10 minutes in, and all of the things that I wanted to teach you today take a little bit more than 3 or 4 minutes to go over. So I think we are just going to cover that on Wednesday. Hopefully this is like a little bonus content because I forgot to put up the live schedule and schedule the events. So I hope everybody has a great week, and look at, now you know the things that you'll need for next time. So you'll be ready to go. A chair, a towel. I say that like you can see the towel that I have underneath my computer right now. And a stick. And after the storms this past week, you can just come to my yard. I have all the sticks you need. Or you can use, one of these guys. All right, and then a floor and a wall, and we will be right as rain and ready to go when we see each other on Wednesday morning. Okay, look at that. Extra bonus and a little bit mess up. Feel like that's right in line with what we're doing. So I hope you guys have a great Monday. And yeah, catch you on Wednesday. Bye.